Namaste,
Namaskar, namaskar.
and Namaste Guruji, and Namaste also to everyone who is watching us today here. It is a great privilege for all of us to interact with dignitaries that we have been doing over the last 2 months. And in this session, we have tried to involve and include learned people, people of great wisdom and great experience of various scientific sectors of human life, who have had a lot of achievement, who have done a lot of study of their own, and have created a large legacy of knowledge behind them. And in this session, it gives me great honor and a great pleasure to introduce Shri Mandlik Guruji, who I don't need to really introduce, but just for the sake of formality, I'll do so. Mandlik Guruji has been a great proponent of Vedic science of yoga for the last 40 years. He founded Yog Vidya Dham in the year 1979 and has been teaching classical textbook correct yoga for the last 40 plus years. He has trained more than 2,500 teachers who are teaching yoga worldwide, and he has also created many yoga centers around the country, around the world, who are right now reaching out to hundreds and thousands of students every year and imparting the classical yoga knowledge that Guruji has imparted to his students. And he has been single-handedly responsible for creating a large yoga movement, for which he was recently awarded the Prime Minister's Award, given to him by Prime Minister of India, which is considered to be one of the highest civilian, one of the many highest civilian awards in our country. So I welcome Mandlik Guruji to our discussion. Namaskar Guruji, welcome.
Hari Om, Hari Om.
It's a great privilege to be able to discuss this very important topic with you, Guruji.
Welcome, welcome.
So we will try and cover as much topic as possible, because I know yoga is a very vast science. But what I wanted to learn from you, and what I wanted all our viewers also to learn from you directly, was the difference between what is now become more of a cosmetic yoga knowledge, which has been taught around the world, and what was classically the Vedic science of yoga. Yoga was a science which evolved over millennia to become what it was, and what is more or less taught in the world today is a very diluted, very cosmetic, market-friendly version of yoga that is being used everywhere in the world, which many times leads to a lot of injuries, which also many times leads to a lot of disappointment in people's hearts, because there is a craving to learn true yoga, there is a craving to learn the original science, and there is not a lot of space where you can go and learn something like this. So I think Yog Vidya Dham stands out in that like a beacon of light, in that way that it is now showing the world the possibility of learning yoga as a true Vedic science. And that is where we want to come to you to understand the concept of yoga itself, Guruji. I would request you to start from the very early, very basic. I know it is not very good of us to ask you to go down to that basic level, but I think only stalwarts like you, only experts like you can shed true light on such topics. And that's why I came to you to help us understand what was the original concept of yoga, as was practiced by the rishis, as was documented by Patanjali Maharshi, and what was the original documentation. So if I request you to please take us to the early journey of yoga as a science, Guruji.
There is a very important point in this respect, which we are also facing, I say facing the problems in propagation of yoga. Yoga is a very ancient science. We can reach to the time of Ramayanas. Yoga Vasishtha, Rishi Vasishtha has taught yoga to Prabhu Ramachandra. That is about 7,500 years ago. Then we have to come to the Mahabharata, that is Bhagavad Gita. That is 5,500 years back. And then comes Patanjali, is 2,500 years back. So yoga has a very large history, wide history. But Patanjali now definitely gives the credit to compose all these yogic practices and to formulate the science. And he has given a very, very systematic explanation, theoretical as well as practical. He has given a very nice practical solution also. But he's explaining yoga as a complete science, not only one part, just asana pranayama, as you discussed. That has been propagated much more. Just a few asanas and pranayamas, and people say that we are a master in yoga. So we'll see that Patanjali Yoga is a basic reference. This is used by most of the institutions also, those who are teaching properly. So we can say Patanjali's teaching, you can call it as a traditional teaching. So the basic aim of yoga, that is more important. The aim of yoga is to join Atman with Paramatman. Atman is a controller of the body-mind complex, and Paramatman is a controller of the universe. So this basic concept has been accepted in yoga. Patanjali Yoga is based on Sankhya Yoga. Sankhya doesn't accept Ishwar, but Patanjali mentions the Ishwar in this concept. He said Ishwar is there, and he has given the definition and all that. I don't want to go in detail of that. But he says Ishwar is represented by Om. And you just stand Om to achieve the target. Basically, he has explained the target as Kaivalya. Kaivalya is oneness. Oneness between Atman and Paramatman. When Atman is developed to the highest level, it becomes Paramatman. That's why Patanjali says Purusha Vishesha Ishvara. Purusha becoming Ishwar is final attainment. So that is final attainment of yoga. And that is why every practice in yoga is aiming to this target. This first concept we must understand. And what is this process from Atman to Paramatman? In simple way, we can say it is a development. Because Atman is controlling only one body and mind, maybe for 100 years. Paramatman is controlling the universe in the beginning. So definitely it is a development. So we can conclude this process of yoga as a total personality development, at least on the primary level. Highest level is Kaivalya only. But for a common person, that highest level is not beyond consideration. But for a common person, we can conclude that yoga is a process of total personality development. Physical, mental, intellectual, and spiritual also. And from this viewpoint, we have to study the practical program given by Patanjali. Patanjali gives Kriya Yoga. In second chapter, he starts Tapasvadhyaya Ishwar Pranidhanani Kriya Yoga. And afterwards, he mentions the details of the Kriya Yoga, particularly that is called Ashtanga Yoga. It is a 8 components. Actually, the component word is also not suitable. Patanjali is using the word Anga, Ashtanga. Anga means organ. And organ is the best word used for these components. Anga means organs. So organs they have got individual purpose or specific function. But all organs are connected together. They are cooperating each other. You just take one organ outside the body, it is of no use. Even the heart or brain. If you take just single outside, it's no use. Similarly, all these components of yoga also are just like organs. They have got specific functions, but they are interconnected. They have got effect on each other. They are working in cooperation. All these things we must understand. And then these 8 components we must understand as a basic concept of yoga. Yama, Niyam, Asan, Pranayam, Pratyahar, Dharana, Dhyan, and Samadhi. Out of this, Dharana, Dhyan, Samadhi is definitely a higher level yoga, we can say. But Yama, Niyam, Asan, Pranayam, and Pratyahar is, we can consider as a primary level. And as far as the Patanjali's concept is there, that these 5 components is a preparation. So this asana and pranayam comes in that. So that is a preparation for advanced yoga. And that includes yamaniyam also. So as I told you, you cannot consider only one component. But people are considering only asana as yoga. And they practice asana, some pranayam, and they become yoga master also. They don't know anything about yamaniyam also, pratyahar also. So we must understand all these concepts and connect them together. I will give the example of connection. Yamaniyam, yama is some rules to follow, how to behave in society. Social discipline, we can say. And niyam is a self-discipline. So that must be maintained. The social discipline gives you the ethical foundation for the further study. And these niyamas, individual development, they will give the physical foundation. And on this foundation, we can proceed to the asana and pranayam. So it is not compulsory that you must practice first yama, then second niyama, and third. All these components are to be practiced simultaneously. So we can't say that you practice yama for 2 months, niyam for 3 months, and then you start asana. It is not like that. You can start asanas, pranayamas also to some extent. You can start following yamas and niyamas also. That we must remember that when you are doing asana and pranayam, we must not forget yama and niyam also. Because that is how to behave in society. Suppose a yoga person doing asanas very nicely, but behaving irrelevant in the society, not properly. He is not supposed to be yoga practitioner. So he has to follow that, what guidelines has given by Patanjali. And those guidelines are not specific. These are natural guidelines. Ahimsa, Satyasthya, Brahmacharya, Parigraha, Yamaha. These are ethical rules and even legal rules also we can say. Because these are followed in all the countries. So these are legal and natural also. Natural tendency of human being is to follow yamas and niyamas. And that is what Patanjali explains. But he explains that before practicing yoga, asana, pranayam, you must know something about this and you keep a watch on your behavior. Just practicing asana for 1 or 2 hours, remaining 22 hours following nothing. That is not proper yoga. So that must be incorporated. Some of the institutes are incorporating all that, but some of the institutes may not. They just focus on asana and pranayam only. And now, even asana and pranayam also, Patanjali has given very systematic way. Actually, asana, this anga is explained by Patanjali only in 3 sutras. There are total 196 sutras, total yoga, out of which asana is only 3. So the value of asana is 3 upon 196. But in 3 sutras, he has explained the perfect technique, which is supposed to be followed, but which is not followed in many cases. I'll just give some examples. Asana Sutra, first sutra is Asana, Sthira Sukham Asana. Asana is a posture, no doubt. But it must be steady and comfortable. Sthira and Sukham, steady and comfortable. So posture must be maintained. Steadiness is to be maintained for a certain time. So people are attaining the position and releasing the position. That is not asana at all, as per Patanjali's definition. People are saying, in 15 minutes, I am doing 15 asanas. He is very proud of it. I am doing 15 asanas. If he is doing 15 asanas, 15 minutes, he is not doing the asana at all. Because all this time he is wasting in attaining and releasing the position. There is no steadiness. There is no steadiness, no asana. And comfort also must be there. That means there should not be any pain, stretch, overstrain and all that. But people are more interested to attain the final position. They give a lot of stretch also. Somewhere they use some instruments also to keep our body steady. But some pain is there, overstrain is there. That is also not asana. So while performing asanas, we must maintain these 2 things. And that varies from person to person. We cannot give some guidelines or rules for that. Steadiness and comfort also. But an individual person should experience. And that is a one asana may be comfortable for one, may not be comfortable for the other. So that is subjective. And that is to be observed by yoga teacher. Yoga teacher is responsible for all that. He must observe while teaching whether this particular position is comfortable or not. And accordingly, he has to give the instructions. We teach the teachers in such a way that they give the instructions accordingly. They are not forcing to attain a final posture. Because Patanjali has not given any particular asana in this text. All the asanas which we perform, they are from the Hatha Yoga.
Yes.
Some Hatha Yoga books are there, Hatha Pratipika, Gheranda Samhita, Shiva Samhita and all. Those books explain the detailed procedure for some asanas. And that is practiced everywhere. But I want to connect both of them. Because Hatha Yoga also yoga and Patanjali Yoga also yoga. So I want to connect the Patanjali's definition to Hatha Yogic asanas. To some extent, some limits are there. But accordingly, if you practice asanas, then we get the better results. If you just attain the position release without maintaining the position for a certain period, there is no proper result. Then how to do this is explained by Patanjali in the 2nd sutra. Prayatna Shaithilya Ananta Samapattidyam. Very perfect technique. Prayatna Shaithilya. Now these 2 words are little bit contradictory. Shaithilya means relaxation. And Prayatna means efforts. So Patanjali says you have to take the efforts to relaxation. Normally we think that relaxation there is no effort. We are not doing anything, we are just relaxing. It is okay, but in asanas, Patanjali says you have to take efforts to relax. Now these efforts are not physical, these are mental. You have to do some mental efforts. Effort with mental effort, no consumption of energy. You have to do mental instructions for relaxation of different muscles. And this is a very special technique we also incorporate in our practicing asanas. It relaxes the total body much better than normal relaxation. So first we have to attain the posture, maintain for a certain time, then relax all the muscles. And one physical effect of this Prayatna Shaitilya also is observed. When we relax the external muscles, because asanas we are stretching the external muscles, which is called skeletal muscles. Our internal organs are also made up of muscles. But our design of body is like that, we make any movement, the skeletal muscles take the stretch or strain or compression, whatever it is. And internal organs are quite safe. But now in this particular position of asana, the muscles are relaxed. First they are stretched to attain the position, but afterwards they are relaxed because of Prayatna Shaitilya. Then the stretch will be transferred because the position is not changed. So the stretch will be transferred from skeletal muscles to the internal muscles. And the internal muscles of different organs will be stretched or compressed a little bit, but that will improve their function. That will improve the blood supply for those organs. That will improve the nerve supply for those organs. And the function will improve. So this technique we are implementing in normal training also, particularly the patients also. Suppose certain patient has got some liver problem, so liver is not functioning properly. Then we will select some asanas which are directly affecting the position of liver and then attain the position, then Prayatna Shaitilya. So the liver muscles may get little bit stretched or compressed. That will improve the blood supply, nerve supply for this liver, and liver function will improve. So like this technique is definitely useful because we are running therapy center and we are getting a lot of patients continuously. We have treated more than 34,000 patients. So we are trying all this and we are getting very good results for the Prayatna Shaitilya. Next step is Ananta Samapatti. Of course, Patanjali expects that in this stage, the mind should be totally disconnected from the body. Now, in Prayatna Shaitilya, mind is fully concentrated on the body. But Ananta Samapatti, mind should be disconnected. Because body is totally relaxed. So there is no work of mind with the body. So mind should be taken to Ananta, infinity. It's something like Samadhi stage. This is very difficult also, and this people may attain after long practice for years together. But we can modify this technique, particularly for the patients, that we ask the patient to concentrate not on Ananta, but to the organ which is faulty in the body. So that organ, because of Prayatna Shaitilya, that organ gets proper blood supply, nerve supply. And now the organ gets the mental supply also. So my mental energy also supplied to the organ. And as we know, mind is controlling the whole body through brain. The mind is the ultimate controller. So if we concentrate mind on particular organ, that organ will improve the function. So this technique also we are utilizing for patients also. So likewise, Patanjali in simple words, Sthira Sukham Asanam and Prayatna Shaitilya and Ananta Samapatti, 4 words he has given a lot of knowledge. We can say it's a practical knowledge. That is to be practiced, and that is how the asanas are to be practiced. Not just seeing the picture and attaining the position, like the video and all that.
Yes. So, Guruji, one very important point you mentioned right at the beginning, which I wanted to help you elaborate a little bit. You spoke about personality development,
Yes.
Which I think is the very fundamental difference between what you are saying and what is happening out there right now. Because the current understanding of a personality that is developed is where you can speak well, you can speak clearly, you can present yourself well, you get a good job, and that helps you get a good salary and make good money. That I think is the current understanding of a personality being good, But what you rightly said about the concept where Vedas describe a personality as developed is when the person has a holistic understanding of his entire being. I mean, he is not only a contributing factor to his own personal development, but at the same time is a very creative and supportive element of the society's overall development as an organ in its own being, right? I mean, the society itself is a creature, and then I am part of that society. That makes I'm part of that society's organ, and I am helping this overall ascension to happen. And this is where Vedas talk about all of these sciences to help you develop that personality, which makes you from manavaha to devaha. I mean, from an average person being a sense-driven, desire-driven person to a more Ananta-driven, Kaivalya-driven person. That difference, I think, is very important for people to understand. That this is yoga that they are talking about. That this junction of this or this connection that the Vedas are describing through the practice of yoga goes beyond just a few asanas done through the phone's app. I think that is something that people need to understand, that this personality, that this evolution from an average person to an evolved yogic being is the basis of yoga. Could you elaborate on that, Guruji?
Yes, that is also a very important point. Personality, physical personality is there, what you talk about that.
Yeah.
That is accepted everywhere. We don't want to discuss in detail, but still I want to say that physical personality means what is development of personality. I want to give one very interesting example. So many classes people are conducting for personality development. So I had contacted one person, director of that institute. I talked him that you are teaching very nicely, what you are doing. You see, we teach very systematically. We teach what is person, then what is personality. Then I asked him how to attain that personality. He said that everybody thinks of it, that we can't teach. Because we can teach what is personality and what is personality development.
Correct.
How to develop, nobody's teaching.
Yeah.
He asked me what you are doing. I said, where you stop, I start from there. Because yoga is the science of personality development.
Right.
But in that case, personality is physical, where we improve the efficiency of our body. That we can do better work in a lesser time period. So efficiency is defined as per that. So we can increase the efficiency of the body. We can do the quality of the work also will increase, quantity of work also will increase. And this we can observe when we teach yoga in even industries also.
Yeah.
When we get direct connection with the productivity. Then secondly, mental personality, that is very important. So what is the development of the mind? Behave properly. First to ourselves. And secondly to the others.
Yes.
In short, following yamas and niyamas. And that result is observed. If you follow just asana and pranayam or even asanas, as per Patanjali's definition, our experience is that the person starts following yamas automatically. We don't have to give some lecture on yamas. The person who is taking non-veg food, he practices asanas like this, within few months, his mentality changes. He says, I don't feel to eat. We don't tell him, no, don't eat non-veg. Because if you tell him, don't eat non-veg, he will not come to the yoga class. So we tell him, you eat whatever you want to that, but you join the class and practice asanas.
Yeah.
And after a few months, he tells that I don't feel to eat. This is a mental development, what I mean to say.
Right.
Suppose a person is a very angry person. After a few months, his anger stops. He says, I could not become angry. I find it difficult to behave then. But it is good. So this is mental development for individual. And now about the society. To give is a basic, we can say, quality of human being. So that is developed. The person starts giving, maybe the money, maybe the knowledge, maybe some help, whatever it is. And this helps for the maintaining the society also. It's very essential.
Right.
The social aspect is improved in the practice of yoga. Just practicing asanas also. But if they are practiced as per Patanjali's definition. If you just practice asanas, there is no result. And finally, it comes the spiritual development. That means to start with, we can say it creates little bit vairagya, non-attachment to the materialistic things. And slowly it goes on increasing. So first Patanjali said aparigraha. That means you get the things which are needed. So fulfill only your needs. Don't get anything beyond your need. To the higher level, we can say He says you reduce the needs slowly, slowly. And finally, there is no need. In stage of samadhi, no need of food, no need of air also. So that is ultimate stage. So this is a spiritual development, we can say. So this is mental and spiritual to accept the Paramatman or Ishwar and try Ishwar Pranidhan and all those processes are explained. So this is total development. This is observed by others also. The other people also say you have changed. Because I say yoga is a science to change for better, definitely. Whatever you are doing, you are going to get some changes. And those are better. If you don't observe these changes, then something is wrong. So this is how yoga develops a total personality. And ultimately, the Purusha becomes Ishwar. Purusha Visheshaha Ishwaraha. That is said by Patanjali. So the human being, Atman, becomes Ishwar controlling the whole universe.
Fantastic. Why I wanted you to elaborate on this was because people need to understand that not just because we wanted to over-explain the Vedic philosophy, but the idea that an average person living a human life has the capacity to one day not only change his or her life, but change the society's future as well. I mean, that is something that I think the Vedic sciences impart in you as a confidence within you, that you don't have to worry about your limitations. You can not only cross over your limitations, but also go out there and become a change factor in society's evolution as well. If there is something that is wrong that you feel as a collective practice that the society is following, you could be a change maker in that scenario. I think this confidence, this feeling of being completely self-confident is something that I think all these Vedic practices like yoga, Ayurveda, Agnihotra impart in you, that you are a very productive and very important part of the society, and then you are all here for a purpose. I think this concept of a purpose of life is something that yoga instills in you. Would you help us understand?
Yes, that is also correct.
Jivan
But actually,
Prayojan.
yoga is individual in its original form. And actually, it was taught before one-to-one proportion. So it taught individually because the teacher has to understand the student, his physical nature, mental nature, even spiritual nature, and teach accordingly. That was original concept in yoga. So yoga normally doesn't discuss the social problems. But at present, what we are observing, that it has become a mass training. Let's come to that level. And this we have to agree it, and it helps to that also. But that will depend on how many people are practicing yoga. So we have to spread the knowledge of yoga to many people. I can give you an example. Suppose a work office is there, corporate office, and everybody in that office practices yoga. That we have experience also. Because now we conduct the classes for particular organizations, so everybody joins the course. And everybody practices. And there the interrelations totally change. They said offices become very calm and quiet now. No struggle, no fights. Everything is very cooperative. So work is very fast. So this is how the yoga impacts on social. So if you want to impact on this complete society, actually everybody should practice yoga. Because somebody is practicing, somebody is not practicing, there will be definitely conflict. But if practicing persons, if they are in majority, as we say, majority carries the point in situation, that will have some effect.
Right.
Just only one person practicing yoga very seriously may not affect the society. So for that, we have to propagate yoga and make everybody to practice yoga. The situation is very improved in this condition. Particularly for this corona, everybody wants to learn yoga. It's a good chance for us to teach properly. So that will definitely modify the society.
Absolutely.
Society will be perfectly in order. And everybody is happy. Because to make everybody happy is a basic target of yoga, on the primary level at least. And that result is definitely expected, even just by practicing asana pranayama also. Because all these components, as I told you, there are angas, they are working in cooperation. So one component is having the effect on the other also. So the asana, just asana also will have effect on whole body, mind, and spirit also. But it should be done properly. That is very important.
Fantastic. Also, I think there is a point that I I feel when you read through Yog Vashishta or even Rig Veda for that matter, one thing I think the rishis acknowledged is that a person is a combination of sattva and tama. So there is a lot of goodness in you. At the same time, there might be things that in you that might be, you can call your weakness, or you can call your dark side, or whatever you want to call it, your own internal demons, whatever you want to call it. This is something I think the Vedic scriptures acknowledge. I think that's the uniqueness of them, that they understand a person is made up of various combination of things, that you are not only a good person at your heart and not a bad person at heart all the time. You are a combination of all of this together. And this unity makes a complete you. And they acknowledge it and make you also accept this, that these are your strong points, these are your weak points. You need to work on your weak points and enhance your strong points. I think this is what is called the enhancing of sattva and then reduction of tama through yogic practices, right? So how do you think can this be achieved in a bigger way, sir?
No, for this I can say that yoga is a process of normalization. That is very important statement. It normalizes, maybe physically, maybe mentally also. So what is the normal situation of a human being? Yoga is bringing to you that level. So bad points, what you have explained, this is not a human nature. This has been imposed by some of the reasons. Original nature of human being is very nice and comfortable. Maybe practicing all yamas, following of yamas is a original nature. Natural instincts of human being. Even Patanjali says ahimsa, non-violence. Actually, non-violence is a nature of human being. We are forced to make violence by some situation or something reasons. So this yoga is bringing to you to normal level. And for that, we don't need to conceal the person. We don't have some discussion and all. We just practice asanas and pranayamas and whatever is you can practice. And he will follow everything because your nature will come to normal. At this point, I already explained that all negative aspects of the nature is automatically dissolving. So I said there is no only solution, but there is dissolution to this problem. And when these things are dissolved, definitely human being can be proper. One example is there in the jail inmates. They are so many experiments have been carried out by different organizations also. We are also teaching in some jail inmates also. They are very cruel and all that. So initially they are not ready to practice yoga also. But we have to make it compulsory in the beginning, and afterwards they change their mentality. They repent for whatever the criminals they have done and all that. So we have observed a lot of changes in this severe condition also. So this is bound to happen. And for that, no special efforts are required. Just practice regularly yoga in proper sense, then definitely these results are coming. So change of mentality is very important. Even these schools, we have selected the worst class in the school. Those who are not studying properly and disturbing everything and fighting and all that. And we have observed that within 5 to 6 months, the total nature of the class has changed. Everybody has become very sincere and all that. So these are the observations we have to try all that. And we say this is to be implemented in all the schools also. The nature of the students will change. And nowadays we are facing a lot of problems from the schools, from the students. Schools and colleges also. And nobody is finding any solution. Nobody can control it. But yoga practice can control. But for that, it must be compulsory to some extent in the beginning at least. Then definitely we can modify these mental attitudes.
Nice. Also, there is a lot of importance given in yoga, especially when it comes to the mind-body relation. I mean, that is something that has been stressed a lot, that at the end of the day, the body through different yama, niyam, asana is trying to control the mind, and manojaya is becoming the end goal through which you can attain spiritual, unity or spiritual yoga at the end, which also I think Lord Krishna mentions in the Gita as well, that through the regular practice of disciplined life, following all the disciplines of yogic practice, one day he says you can also attain a spiritual unity. How could you explain this mind-body relation? Because it becomes very important for me to understand this so that I can go on to the next question. the concept of the relation of the mind with the body, which even the modern medical science doesn't even understand right now. They still try to struggle with this connection, which I think is the foundation of all of these ancient yogic practices, the relation between the mind and its effect on the body. Could you please elaborate on that?
Yes, correct. Because if you refer the definition, Patanjali's definition is yoga chitta vritti nirodha. Chitta vritti nirodha means controlling the functioning of mind. The definition given by Vasishtha, Yoga Vasishtha, yogaha manaha prashamana upayaha. That is, everybody, it is explained that yoga is meant for controlling the functions of mind. And now if you refer the modern sciences, they could not find the mind because mind has no physical existence. So modern anatomy and physiology, they say mind is not existing, we don't know. But they have to believe that mind is there. In psychology also, they are not found out where the mind in all that. So psychology is a study of mind. And if you come to the yoga, we can say it is not only study of mind, but it is controlling the mind. After controlling, there is a development of mind, which results in miracles and siddhis. And finally, dissolution of mind. Because unless the mind is dissolved, there is no liberation. So ultimately, mind is controlling body-mind complex. NRTV says brain is controlling. It is perfectly right, brain is controlling. But who is controlling brain? There is something which is controlling brain, and that is different from different persons. That is why everybody behaves differently. So that is mind which is controlling brain. And then brain controls, and mind is thoughts. That is, we can also understand. First thought comes in the mind, and then we react, maybe orally or physically. So mind is there to control. And now modern sciences also has accepted, even modern medicine, doctors have accepted that mind is major cause for the disease. And nowadays they are saying that most of the diseases are psychosomatic. I mean, disease is somatic and cause is psycho. And modern medicine cannot control mind because they don't have the medicine for the mind.
Sure.
They have got a medicine for the body. And that is why many of the diseases are uncontrollable. Simple case, hypertension, diabetes, and all these things. Person has to take the medicine throughout the life. That means they can't cure. So doctors say we control the disease and not cure the disease. But yoga can say we can cure the disease. Of course, with certain limitations. But we can cure, that means no medicine is required. And that we are already observing. That we stop the total medicines and person becomes perfectly all right without medicine. So this is because we can't control the mind. And medicines cannot control the mind. So that is how it differentiates. And that is how modern science also has accepted yoga as a therapy also. So doctors also recommending you take the medicine but practice yoga also. Actually, he is improved by yoga only. Medicine is just controlling. Now for diabetes, I can say, if you take the tablet or even insulin, that is controlling sugar level. But diabetes is deficiency of the insulin from the pancreas. Medicine is not improving that. But yogasanas, pranayamas, or all these techniques, they improve the functioning of pancreas. So the insulin production is proper. So there's no medicine required. So that is how it works. And because mind is responsible for every action, even some disease also mind is responsible. And curing also mind is responsible. Now, after giving medicine for certain patients, that medicine doesn't work. The doctors say we are giving medicine, but the patient is not accepting it. What is this accepting? Physically, it is put it in his blood. It is mentally not accepting. And if mentally is not accepted, the body will not accept. We have got a lot of experience for this. Because sometimes the patients are not ready to accept the yoga treatment also.
Yes.
Then yoga treatment also doesn't work. So we have to make them, their mind to accept. We have got some techniques, particularly the yoga nidra and om chanting and all that. And then it works, yoga. Otherwise, yoga also doesn't work. The mind is so powerful. Mana eva manushyanam karanam bandha mokshayeho. It is binding also or liberation also.
Very interesting, because I think this is something that is unique in these Vedic sciences or the Vedic approach to health. because this is something that hasn't been understood a lot in modern medicine. The impact mind has on your being, on your entire being, not just your health status, but your entire life is decided at the end of the day by your mind. Mind body complex is developed by impulses that happen in the mind, experiences that happen in your mind, also through past experiences. I mean, that is called as sanskaras imparted by your parents, because those sanskaras they have gained from their past experiences, imparted up onto them by their parents. So at the end of the day, you are carrying the weight of all of these positive, negative experience bundle that is getting passed on to you generation by generation, creating you as a being, as a vast product of what has happened 10 maybe generations ago. So all of that is right now weighing down upon a person, causing that person to behave in a certain way, is something that I think now people are waking up to. That it's called as healing your generational baggage, that you are carrying maybe baggage of your earlier generations as well, imparted through family teaching, imparted through school teaching, imparted through peer learning that you learn also now to mass media. A person becomes who he or she is from all this knowledge that they gain. And this might not be that person's individual knowledge that he or she wanted. This is something that has been thrust on them from the outside, reprogramming the mind in a way that it becomes to malfunction. And that malfunction is leading to diseases, is something that modern medicine doesn't understand. But both these sciences, Ayurveda and yoga, understood this from the very beginning, that your purva karma of your parental lineage, your from your social learning, your peer learning, your school learning, creates you as a person, and that can have a positive and a negative impact on you. Positive impact will create a positive side of your personality. Negative impact will create negative side of the personality, and also disorders down the line. This is something I think is very important when what you said, that the mind can actually go in and create imbalance, creating a physical manifestation of the disease. This is something is very important. Is this something you want to say something about, Guruji?
No, there is one thing that we are getting the information from externally, as you already explained it. And you told that it is already stored. But you see, our mind has got a role to accept or reject. It is called vivek. That is very important. And that vivek must be developed.
That is important.
The person will say, this is not correct, so I will not accept this. So this will just maybe stored in the subconscious mind. But not accepting means that will not function. If he accepts everything, maybe good thing, maybe bad thing, then the bad things also affect his reactions. So this vivek can be developed. Patanjali says, by practicing of Ashtanga Yoga, he says, viveka khyati. Ashuddhi kshayat viveka khyati hote. That is the result of Ashtanga practicing. That means this vivek will be developed. What is to accept and what is not to accept. And whatever is accepted, that will control his further actions. So this vivek is perfect. Then he will judge that person. And then there will be no conflict also. Otherwise, there will be conflict also there. Something is good, something is bad, and both things are there in his mind. Then there will be conflict. What to do? Just as the conflict of Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita. He has got a conflict whether to fight or not. He was a very learned person. But all these things, as you told, they are conflict in his mind only. And solution is Bhagavad Gita for that. Bhagavan has explained everything, and then his conflict has gone up. So that is a yoga will develop definitely this vivek.
This common sense, as it is called.
Yes, but common sense is a very common word.
Vivek is basic intellect. Basic intellect that you can decide between difference between right and wrong could be judged in a better way.
What is right and what is wrong? That is vivek. So vivek will tell you exactly for your personality what is good and what is bad.
Why I'm saying this is because in this current day that we live in, yoga has now almost crossed over to become a potent medical science. I mean, it started out to be a bodybuilding science for getting flat stomach, flat abs, like that. Now it has ventured into becoming more or less a medical science. So now people are looking at yogic asanas and yogic practices to relieve themselves of physical ailments in a big way. Of course, it is a step towards understanding that yoga is basically a complete lifestyle which will basically prevent also these occurrence of these diseases in the first place. But now people come to yoga for a therapeutic reason, that I have a particular problem, could be from diabetes to spondylosis, from heart disease to maybe rheumatoid arthritis. People are now also looking at yoga from its therapeutic value. But this understanding of what is called as samprapti in the Ayurvedic concept, the pathogenesis or the evolution of a disease in the body itself has to be understood. I think because that is where that is why I wanted you to help us understand the connection of the mind and body. Because from the medical science perspective, from the modern medical science perspective, mind is just the brain. So if you are having a problem in your heart, the brain might or might not have any connection with this. So when we say that the mind can, dukkha can create, grief can create heart disease, is something that they don't understand. Or they might not relate to it in a big way, that they don't really see the connection happening, that grief is an emotion felt in the brain and the heart has nothing to do with it. Or the fact that a childhood trauma that you are carrying from your early childhood can result in a disease 20 years later, manifesting itself as a full-blown disease 20 years later, because it was lying dormant in your mind, manifesting itself in over a 20-year period, is something that they still don't understand. And I think this is where I think yogic practices are coming into foray, because people might not understand this connection, but by doing yogic practices, they are still healing this trauma that was there hidden in somewhere in your subconscious mind. Would you elaborate on that, Guruji?
No, this is also a very important point which you have raised. Therapeutic aspect. You see, the existence of mind and effect of mind nowadays it is accepted in modern science. Because particularly when they explain the fight or flight response, that is strictly with connection with the mind. When the people talk about the stress is mental stress, not physical one. So effect of the mind is already accepted, but in modern medicine, they don't have any medicine for the mind. Psychiatric medicine is there, but that is all just sedative and tranquilizer, and that's all. There is no controlling the mind. Yoga can control the mind. And as you said about therapeutic aspect, that is also an important aspect. Actually, yoga is a science to develop Atman to Paramatma, nothing related with therapy. And Patanjali has not talked anything about therapy. Hatha Yoga has discussed to some extent somewhere. But what we observe in practice, that all these yogic practices, maybe asanas, pranayamas, cleansing processes, om chanting, yoga nidra, these are useful for the patients.
Yes.
Of course, there is no materia medica.
Yes.
There is no ancient book which explains that what particular disease, particular asana and all that.
Yeah.
That is what we found from our experience. The same thing is being done in different institutes also. So we run a yoga therapy center where we admit the patients. We have a 25 bed patients. Every 10 days we admit the patients, we keep them for 10 days and give the treatment. And most of the patients are coming from the different therapies only. Because they have tried different therapies, they are not getting proper results, so they approach to yoga. And as I told you, medicines are there, emergency treatment is there, that we have to appreciate definitely. But medicines can control, not cure. And yoga can cure. That is more important aspect. So that is where we have to give full attention to the physical condition and mental condition also. Because we get the depression patients, very serious depression. Suppose a person comes to, he says, I want to suicide. But still he has brought to our center by his relatives. He said, after going back, I am going to suicide. Then we give him the treatment accordingly. In that treatment, we include Bhagavad Gita philosophy also to some extent. Whatever he can understand. And after 10 days, he said, now I'm not going to suicide. Now I'll just work, get some job and all that. So total change is there. So there's a total mental change. There's no physical wrong. But combination also is there in most of the diseases. Physical problem is also there. Some mental problem also is there. So we have got some treatment for mental correction, maybe yoga nidra, om chanting, and some counseling. And for physical problems, we get asanas, pranayamas, and all that. So that everything has got specific for patient. That is definitely true. It cannot be treated in a class. It is one-to-one. Individually, we have to do the treatment. Because every patient has got different problems, different levels of understanding, different states of mind. So we teach every patient separately.
Yes.
How to teach that is a very big subject. We cannot explain right now.
Right.
But it works quite well. That is definitely true. Because we consider the mind also. So some treatment for the mind is there. I told you, Omkar chanting is very good for the mental stability.
Right.
Then some yoga nidras, they are specifically designed yoga nidras are there. Work to change the subconscious mind, some programs. As we already discussed, some programs are there in the subconscious mind and they affect the reactions on the body.
Right.
So that we can modify, the reaction also changes. So like that we can definitely treat. Of course, there are certain diseases, maybe the cancer or AIDS is very difficult to treat with yoga. So to my experience, we make the combination. Whether modern medicine, allopathy, or even Ayurveda, that is still better. To some medicines, in the beginning, to some extent, connected with yoga practices, and afterwards the medicine can stop. Only yoga can continue. So with combination, we can give the best results.
Also, recently I was speaking to a very renowned psychiatrist, and she referred me to some articles on the internet which I went through, and there is a larger understanding that is growing in the medical fraternity with respect to mental illness, because mental illness is a very big factor nowadays, and more now that issue is coming to fore with the rapid problems that are growing in the society, and the foods that we eat, the pollution that is around us, all of that is resulting into a grave situation. And there is a rampant use of these chemical drugs that is used in psychiatry in a big way. And then she referred to me for the fact that now there is a growing understanding that most of these disorders might not have anything to do with the brain in the first place. I mean, depression might not be a brain related issue. It could be coming from other parts of the body as well, especially the gut, because of the microbiome and its evolution. So this is something that is now being accepted in the West as well, that the mind could be a larger concept. I mean, not just localized in the brain. That's why I think what you are saying has a lot of value, that many practices which don't directly impact the brain still end up giving you a lot of therapeutic value. For instance, all the yogic poses that you might be advising, or the yoga nidra that you are saying, don't have a direct impact on a particular organ, but they end up causing healing in a bigger way, because there is a larger, the body, its disease and its location are a larger understanding. And this is something that needs to be understood in a bigger way, that because if the therapeutic value that yoga has really imparted to the world has made a lot of the medical fraternity sit up and take notice of this, because there is no way that this particular asana could have solved this disease, but it does. No way that meditation could have helped, but it does. No way yoga nidra could have helped, but it does. And this now effect and cause and effect thing is causing a lot of introspection to happen, that maybe like Dr. Reddy, I was speaking to a very renowned physician a couple of days ago, and he said that now is a time to think of medicine beyond internal medicine, beyond tablets and capsules, into more of a lifestyle change. So that is where yoga comes in, I guess. So can you help us understand yoga as a complete lifestyle, Guruji?
Basically, as you told, that consider the position of the mind. See, actually, it is having no physical existence. So we cannot say where the mind is there. But in detail, we can say the mind is there in every cell also. Our body is made up of millions and billions and trillions of cells. But every cell is a live particle. Every cell has got physical structure. And every cell has got energy, so pranic structure. And every cell has got the mind also. So as we consider these 5 koshas, Annamaya kosh, Pranamaya kosh, Manomaya kosh, Vijnanamaya kosh, and Anandamaya kosh. So every cell has got all these 5 levels. That means every cell has got its own mind. And I can give the example for the cancer, you see, cancer cells. What is wrong in that? These are our body cells only. But their mind is not functioning properly. That is why they don't follow the instructions of the brain also. That is the cancer cell. So that means the mind is disturbed. That means we can say that in every disease, mind of the particular cells of particular organ also is not proper. And for that stage, there is no medicine. But yogic practice, as I told you, it is yoga, chitta vritti nirodha, yoga, mana, prashamanupaya. So everything is controlling mind. It is not controlling only brain. It is controlling of the mind of every cell also. But we have to focus accordingly during the training, that we must give proper information to the patient or person and then accordingly you should practice. Then this thing also can happen, that mind of every cell can be changed or modified.
This is very interesting, Guruji. Like I was saying, I was speaking to Dr. Reddy from the US, and he's an integrative medicine practitioner. And he made a very beautiful point. He said that majority diseases, the way that we have understood them so far, for instance, the way Ayurveda is understood and the way the modern science has established it, or Yoga Ayurveda is understood, has a large difference. Like you rightly said, every cell at the end of the day is an individual, and that cell is trying to protect itself first. It's not trying to protect the whole organism. It's trying to protect itself first. That's why it is an entity in itself. It is a living being with a mind and an entity in itself, and it is only trying to protect its own existence at the end of the day. This understanding of human body's physiology, the way that we understand it from a Vedic perspective, is now taking center stage, Guruji, because more and more people, Dr. Reddy, like for instance, very beautifully, he said that now we have to relearn everything, that we have to unlearn medicine as we have understood and relearn everything, because what he says through 45 years of medical practice, he has understood is that medicine as is being practiced today is going to reach a dead end soon, unless there is a fundamental change in its outlook, and that the body is understood differently, the mind is taken into context in a different way, and this larger mind body complex is understood not only in the perspective of disease causing, but also in its natural habitation. How does the body react naturally? What are the foods necessary for its natural evolution? How the mind reacts to food? These are the aspects that were not discussed before. I mean, the sheer fact that, like you rightly said, the correlation between eating a certain kind of sattvic food and your body mind complex functioning normally was never understood before. I think that was one of the chief reasons why vegetarianism took a backstage, because people never understood its importance. So could you help us understand the relation between food and the mind body complex, Guruji?
Food also is connected with the mind. But physically, we say food contains proteins, carbohydrates, vitamins, and all those things, and those are needed for every cell of the body. That is a modern concept. That is not wrong, but that is not complete. Because food is also required for the mind. May not be in the form of carbohydrates and proteins and vitamins. But food itself contains something additional to this, which you call as a live food and dead food. We discussed these points, live food and dead food. What is dead food kept in the just for preserved for a long period? It's like a dead food. And live food, what is the difference? Some pranic energy also is there. So that energy provides us, because we have got pranic energies. I told you, Annamaya Kosh, Pranamaya Kosh, and Manamaya Kosh. So we have to provide food for all the three koshas. Annamaya Kosha, as discussed with the modern science. Pranamaya Kosha, we can say live and dead food. Fresh food is live food. Preserved food is a dead food, because the pran concept is going out of that. Like that, food is for the mind also. So food provides some qualities to the mind. If you take some rajas food or tamas food, as explained in Bhagavad Gita in particular, the behavioral pattern also becomes tamas. That is clearly explained by Bhagavanta in Bhagavad Gita. So food definitely is connected with all these three concepts, and we have to consider that. But these concepts cannot be accepted by modern science, because they just go to the sensory perceptions. Because they consider the brain, and brain is connected with sensory perception only. Brain cannot go beyond sensory perceptions. And yoga goes beyond sensory perception. Indriyatit jnana. So this beyond sensory perception, so many things are explained. Rather, that is a major field of yoga. Sensory perception is a very common field for every common human being. But beyond sensory perception, so many things are there. Even these miracles and siddhis, this also is beyond sensory perceptions. And this beyond sensory perception, modern science is studying this aspect. They named it as an extrasensory perception, ESP. If you give these words in Google, extrasensory perception, thousands of sites are there. And they are studying this aspect. I say studying. They want to find out cause and effect relationship and all that. They could not find it, because their concept is related to sensory perception only. So these things are definitely possible with yoga and proper sattvic food, as explained in Bhagavad Gita also. So definitely it has got the relation and we get the results. The question remains to prove the results. That is very difficult because the science is just connected with sensory perception and this is extrasensory perception. So they can't understand all these things. So when the modern science can't understand how they can prove it, that is the problem. And that is where they are also in trouble. They are seeing the results, but they cannot prove it in their terminology. So they can't accept. But the results are there. So that is their responsibility now to find out how it is happening.
Also, I think one important aspect that I learned over these such discussion sessions was that there is going to be a saturation point in what is called as evidence-based medicine. That you have to prove it into a clinical trial, and then that medicine has to become approved. The way that it is being done now, there is going to a saturation point because there are many non-medical practices like yoga, especially yoga, which have proven to be phenomenal healing sciences, have provided unbelievable healing value where it was not even possible. Especially in cases of mental illness, yoga has proven to be a path-breaking science. Because I have seen people who have the whole understanding of mental illness itself. The fact that you have developed a particular set of emotions over a journey of a few years is something that was not understood before, and that journey has to be now unlocked or has to be unwound is something that was not understood before. That's why I think all they tried to do was subdue that emotion or subdue that that outburst of emotion that people have, and that was not leading to any change. I mean, I read this article wherein this doctor, this lady who is a very renowned psychotherapist, she says that there are more problems because of medicines than there were before medicines. Now there are more disorders that are caused because of taking of these medicines, which have been proved through clinical trials. But now, over a period of time, they've understood the side effects are more than the effect itself. So this is something I think where yoga is going to play a very vital role, Guruji, going forward, because there's a lot of talk now about integrative medicine becoming taking a center stage, and a new understanding of health is necessary. How would you help us understand yoga more as a therapeutic science going forward, Guruji?
See, the modern science is already confused now what to do, because whatever they are doing, they only have proved that is not correct, and they don't find the correct path because they don't want to accept all those things. That is why they are confused. But yoga is no confusion. As you said, side effects. There are side effects of the medicine; those are very bad. So as per that, there are side effects of yoga also, but they are good side effects, not bad. For suppose a person with cervical spondylitis practices yoga and he is a smoker. If he practices regular yoga, then his smoking will stop. This is a side effect of yoga, but that is better. So like that, our experiences are very good, very effective. How to prove that we can't prove it because the modern science has got research methodology and all that. It is their responsibility to prove all these things, but the results are definitely there, and they are worldwide results are there. Not only one institution. There are a number of institutions where all these experiments are carried out and they are getting good results. So everything is continued, no problem. And that is why government also has accepted yoga and naturopathy as a Indian system of medicine. It is accepted as a system of medicine. That is more important. We have got a separate ministry, Ayush ministry.
Yes.
So it is being accepted now, not only by government, but of the people also. And the time will come that modern medicine also will accept. But when they want to accept yoga and other things, they have to reject their science. And that's all these financial aspects and commercial aspects are there. That is why they are just jumbled what to do.
Very, very good, sir. One point that I also wanted you to help us understand was the use of detoxes. I mean, the Shuddhi Prakriyas that yoga has. I mean, for instance, Ayurveda has a very elaborate Shodhana Chikitsa, as we call it, as a cleansing therapies, which help cleanse the body and in turn cleanse the mind as well. So, is there a role of the yogic Shuddhi Prakriyas in in today's practice, or does that is not necessary anymore for today's yoga practice, Guruji?
Which cells you talk about?
The cleanses, Guruji, the shuddhis.
Pardon?
The cleansing processes in yoga, Guruji. Before the Ashtanga Yoga, there is the Shuddhi Prakriya, Guruji.
Yes. You see, Hatha Yoga, the cleansing practices are explained in much more detail. It is called Shat Karma. Ayurveda says Pancha Karma. Yoga says Shat Karma, but most of them are similar. Some variations are there. But it cleans the body internally. We clean the body externally with soaps and shampoos and all that. But what about the internal cleaning? Internal cleaning of the nasal passage, some neti is there. Internal cleaning for the stomach, Vaman Dhauti is there. Internal cleaning for the total digestive tract, Shankha Prakshalan is there. Internal cleaning for the lungs, Kapalabhati is there. So all these cleansing processes are explained in detail. But Patanjali doesn't talk about this. He talks only one Shaucha Niyam. Make your body and mind pure, that's all. But how to make it? Hatha Yoga is explaining all these things. And these things are practicable. Because we have already tried them. We are regularly teaching the students. We are experiencing the immediate result. Suppose a person is suffering with acidity. The modern medicine gives him antacid. So acid and antacid, there is a chemical reaction. It neutralizes acid and alkali. But the end product remains in the stomach. And that is to be carried out through the digestive tract throughout for disposing. But in acidity problem, if you give woman, drink the saline water and vomit, so all acidity will remove immediately. The patient will get the immediate result and no residue, nothing else, no effect and all that. So likewise, Shankha Prakshalan, so many things are there and they give immediate result. That's what we observe. Now lungs, how to clean the lungs? Because we're taking a lot of impure air. Pollution results are there on TV every now and then. We're inhaling all that impurities. That is stored in the lungs. How to clean? Kapalabhati is the best process to clean. Just a breathing technique. But nobody has explained up till now. It is explained in Hatha Yoga, maybe 1500 years back. But presently we are observing the result. So definitely cleaning processes are there. They are similar to Ayurveda, but Ayurveda uses some herbs and all that. Yoga doesn't use all these herbs. But they are similar. Snehan, Svedan, and these are Ayurvedic processes.
Yes.
So we can make combination of the two depending on the requirement of the patient. If it works quite well, it gives immediate result. But lot of care is to be taken for teaching and practicing.
And also, I think like now, because what I wanted everybody to understand is that the lifestyle that yoga talks about, the food properties, the mind control practices, the cleansing properties, all of these are going to have its impact on creating health also and fighting disease also, right? I mean, they're going to be the same for both the practices, right?
Yes, not, you see, as I told you, basically it is a normalization process. So disease is abnormal thing. So for disease, we can definitely implement yoga practices. Then for healthy person, we can use the yoga practice for maintaining. We always say that maintenance is better than cure. Prevention is better than cure. But what to do for prevention? There is no medicine for prevention. Yoga practice is for prevention. So it can prevent your body and mind also. And there is a development also, next stage, development of the body and mind, which we already discussed. So all these effects are there. Avoiding the disease, coming to normal, maintenance, and development. Everything is possible with the yogic practices. Medicine only controls the disease, that's all. Temporarily, that.
Because even I think from the Ayurvedic perspective, what we are being taught is as the Dinacharya, Rutucharya concept and the Ahara Vihara concept, that the lifestyle modules are explained first. And if you go wrong in something here is when you choose the medical therapeutic value. This is what the text also tells us. I think it is similar even in the yogic practices, because both these sciences must have evolved at the same time at some point in time. They must have gone parallel at some point, intersecting wherever is necessary. What I find very important from what we have discussed, Guruji, is that these Vedic sciences were not only meant to cure you from your illnesses, but actually to create you into a superhuman being. I mean, that you enhance your mind potential so much, you create the body into such a technique tool that it becomes you reach levels of intellect, you reach levels of concentration, focus, physical capacity, vitality, endurance to a level which starts looking as superhuman, that you start behaving in a way that maybe an average person might not comprehend, and that they were looked upon as superior beings eventually. So this lifestyle, that the Vedic lifestyle, as we call it, the whole Vedic lifestyle is basically meant to give you potential that you can then use to create the life of your dreams, right, Guruji?
Yes. First, we have to be healthy per condition.
Yes.
And I explained by Ayurveda, prasanna atmendriya manaha, that is health.
Ji.
So that health is the first target which is required by the society. Development is the next one.
Ji.
Some of the health is there, then we look for the development.
Ji.
So that is also definitely possible with yoga and Ayurveda also. But some concepts are common, particularly Vata Pitta Kapha concept is used in yoga also, in Ayurveda also. But Ayurveda particularly uses the different herbs and all that.
Ji.
That yoga is not recommending all that. Yoga is basically based on yogic practices like Ashtanga Yoga, which I explained earlier. But that is sufficient to give so many things. But in some cases, we may have to combine. When we want to combine, Ayurveda is much close to yoga. So definitely we combine Ayurveda and yoga. That is the best combination for everything, not only for the patient, but for living the proper life also.
Ji.
Because even health is there, but if person is not happy, prasanna atma indriya man, everything must be prasanna. So for that yoga will help. Medicine will not help.
Ji. That is where I wanted to draw your attention, Guruji, because that you rightly mentioned, prasanna atma indriya and mana. So this is the mind, body, spirit complex that yoga and Ayurveda have accepted. I think modern medicine, we are still trying to explain the mind, body complex. Now it is going to be a challenge to explain the mind, body, spirit complex, because this is something that very difficult to explain also, and very difficult to understand for an average person, that the modern research has right now only reached the body, and then we are trying to explain to them the mind and body. And then I think the next step is going to be the mind, body and the spirit as well. So this is going to take some time, some explaining from our end to help not only average people, but the entire scientific community to understand, Guruji.
Modern medicine has to reform totally for them. Rather, they have to reject whatever they are doing and they have to accept whatever they are not doing. Rather, they should become yogi, that's all. They should practice and then they will realize everything. Then there will be no conflict. They are not studying yoga, so there is a conflict. If they study yoga, then definitely no conflict. And ultimately, our aim is to keep the total human race in a good condition. Not a particular religion or particular caste or particular nation, anything. World Health Organization is also meant for that. So they have to consider this structure of yoga and Ayurveda in particular for the betterment of the human life.
And I think that is where it is very important also. At one point you really very well mentioned that it is not dependent or not restricted to a particular understanding, a religious understanding, a national understanding, or a racial understanding. It is for humanity totally, because these are aspects that have been developed keeping the humanity perspective focused, not a particular region or particular group of people, right? That is where people need to understand that the Vedic sciences are meant for humanity itself, not for a particular group of people.
Yes, if we refer the ancient text, even Yoga Vasishtha, Patanjali Yoga Darshan, Bhagavad Gita, Hatha Yoga, nowhere the religion is explained. Everywhere it's for human being. So everything is meant for human being, irrespective of all these things. Now these things have been brought by the modern politicians because they want to divide. So it's not good. We must accept human as one everywhere. Because religion or caste or creed, that is all like external clothing. Internal body is same. If you just find the body of human being, you go anywhere in the world, it is same. Everybody has got same heart with 4 compartments, everything. There is no change. Whatever change is only external clothing only. These are the religion and caste and creed and all these external clothing. Yoga is not accepting all that. It's for all.
It's for everybody. I think that is something that more and more we speak. That's why I think I requested you to get a second chance that we do this thing in Hindi as well, because these are important points that everybody needs to understand. That the yoga, all these Vedic sciences, Vedas, the Vedic philosophy itself goes beyond religious understanding. It's for human evolution, from being born as a child to rise up to be a yogi. That is the journey that everybody.
Ultimately, Ishwar.
ultimately, eventually, from
Yes,
the
yes,
yogi
yes.
avastha, go up right up to being an Ishvara and in super brain or whatever it is called. You go up to that state of existence, and that everybody born on this planet as a human has that potential that you can become Ishvara. You know that you
Yes.
have been given this opportunity to rise up and become Ishvara. In that field, now that you have been working for the last 40 years, Guruji, can you quickly explain all the facility available with Yog Vidyadham? How does an average person come to you and learn, and what all can I get to learn, Guruji?
See, in our institution, we can say we got different courses. And courses start from very beginner also. We got a short course of 1 hour also. We called it Yoga Bindu.
This is what you are giving us right now?
Yes, we are giving the training. Now, this is a theoretical discussion only. We teach some movement, asanas and all that, pranayamas and all that. So we can teach anybody. Yoga, it is said in the Hatha Yoga. Yuva vruddhoti vruddhova vyadhito durbalopiva. Abhyasat siddhi mapnoti sarva yogesh svatandrita. Means is young, vyadhit means diseased person, old person, a weak person. Everybody can practice yoga. So we have developed the different courses. And of course, the individual training also is there. But different courses are there. So we recommend particular course for a particular person, depending on his requirements. And different courses for diseases also is there. For every disease, different courses there. So like that, we have got a lot of training programs. And then we have got the teachers also. We have more focus on the teachers. Because one person cannot teach all. We have to develop the teachers to spread the message of yoga and to teach. So we are focusing more on teachers. So we have got different levels of teachers also. Primary level, higher level, then still higher level. And they are allowed to teach certain things in yoga only. It is restrictions are there. If you're on the primary level, you can teach only one course. Higher level, you can go for the advanced course, like that. And there are therapy aspect also is there.
Yes.
So therapy teachers are totally different there. They have to be given the medical background also. Anatomy, physiology, pathology, all those things. So this training program is our main focus. When we train better persons, they will teach properly. They got training, then they got a TOT programs also, training of the trainers also. And we have got continuous workshops for revisions also. Those who are already working in the field, we call them and give them latest information about the subject.
Nice.
So different workshops also we are regularly conducting. We have got in Trambakeshwar, we have got 25 acres of land where we have developed the ashram. We request you also, you can visit once.
I will, Guruji.
There is
Definitely.
arrangement for staying and all that. About 300 people can stay in the ashram comfortably.
I will definitely.
After this corona problem.
Ji.
now there is nobody in the ashram. Only 50 persons are there in the ashram.
This would be a good time to visit actually then.
Yes, but yes, you can, no problem.
Ji.
So like that, training is more important here.
Ji.
Training to the public in different level, training to the teachers, training to the trainers also. So all systematic programs are there. And of course, the different programs are propagation of yoga also there.
Ji.
Then we can conduct some courses in large scale. Maybe 1,000 people can come and they can learn all these things. Some courses are like that also, particularly meditation or some pranayama courses, something like that. And nowadays we have started the courses on online also.
Acha.
So that also is there. It has got certain limits, but still we can work within the limits.
But it is very important to learn with a guru, right? I mean, you need to have.
Perfectly. Because if it is practiced wrongly, the wrong results are also definite.
Can you elaborate on that, Guruji?
Now suppose take asana. Now simple asana is there. Yoga mudra, something forward bending asana. But the person having the back problems, they should not do the forward bending asana, even it is simple.
Ji.
If they do the forward bending asana, their problem will be more complicated or more severe also. So this must be observed. Now, yoga mudra is very good for everybody, but not good for the spondylitis person. Now, Shirshasana is also very good, but it is not good for the heart patient. So like that, Vaman Dhauti is also good, but it is not good for the hypertension person.
Ji.
And if yoga is not practiced properly, it is bad for everybody. So practicing properly is important thing.
Ji.
But practicing the selection is also more important. What to practice.
Ji.
So that we have to keep very minor watch on the individual capacity, physical condition, mental condition, and then we select and then we teach. So that gives the proper results.
Especially with pranayama practices, right? People go up
Yes.
to these serious pranayama practices without having any knowledge, and I've seen many people get injured because of that.
No, it is written in the text.
Yeah.
Pranayamena yuktabhyasena sarva roga vinashaka. You practice properly, all diseases can go off. But in the second line, it is said, pranayama ayuktabhyasena sarva roga samudbhava. If you practice wrongly, not wrongly, not if it is not practiced correctly, that is the proper word. If it is not practiced correctly, any disease can come up. But this is particularly for the kumbhak, that is holding of breath.
Right.
If you practice different pranayamas without holding of breath, that is not serious. But still, it has got some results. So, Shitali Shitkar is cooling down pranayama. If it is practiced by the person who is suffering with cough and cold, this problem will more complicated.
Will become enhanced.
Sujay Bedan Basrika is stimulating or hot pranayama, it is called it. If it is practiced by hypertension person, his hypertension will increase. Heart disease person, he will get maybe another attack also. So like that, we have to select. We have to study first the things and select properly. That is very important.
This is why I wanted the world to understand it from an expert like you, Guruji, because there is a lot of inquiry, a lot of enthusiasm in people's hearts to learn yoga, but they end up learning yoga in the way that is not meant to be, you know. And then they just feel that it is just a simple practice, breathing, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out, and sit down and meditate, and then twist your body a little and go home. That is a yoga class nowadays. And I think that is where it is going to cause a lot of problems going forward, because improper learning can cause serious damage as well. You know, serious issues could creep up. And that is why we need to learn with somebody like you, somebody who is a real learned person, and also through maybe your teachers down the line, whoever they are teaching in various parts of the country and various parts of the world as well. One more point that I wanted to discuss with you, Guruji, was Agnihotra, for instance, because we are talking Agnihotra in a big way, and we have taken it around the world, literally. And here in the ashram, we are conducting Agnihotra Yoga Ayurveda based therapy programs, wherein we have seen, because Agnihotra has a direct impact on Saumanasya. That is the first impact. The Vedas, the Atharva Veda is saying that the first impact of the Agnihotra practice is on the mind. You know, that it gives you Saumanasya or tranquility, and then you develop from there on forward. So this, I think, put together, I mean, the yogic practices, the Ayurvedic medical aid, and Agnihotra's impact on the mind is a great combination, tackling psychosomatic diseases in a bigger way, Guruji. And this is something that we have seen here in the ashram, in our own clinics, because I am myself a doctor. I see that happen on a daily basis. Because like I said, there is now a renewed understanding. For instance, there is now a renewed understanding on heart disease also. You know, now they are saying cholesterol might not be the big problem there. Cholesterol is there as a fighting mechanism of inflammation. You know, the problem is the inflammation, not the cholesterol. The raised sugar levels are not the problem. The underlying problem is something different that is causing the sugar to not get digested. That is the disease, you know, so on and so forth. And I think this is where the ancient Vedic understanding of health and wellness comes into play, because we understand, like you rightly mentioned, Atma, Indriya, and Mana, the mind, body, spirit complex. And I think these three put together, we have had great success, Guruji. So can I have your few thoughts on Agnihotra and its practice also? Because you did Agnihotra for some time.
Yes, particularly the other components we are already using it. Only the time is a little bit difficult for us to manage. The sunrise and sunset time and our time schedule doesn't match. But we have got that part, particularly that cow dung, and that we are using the Havan actually regularly in our ashram. Every day we practice Havan at 6:45 with a Mahamrityunjay mantra 108 times. So that we are regularly carrying out. It gives good results even on foreigners also, because a lot of foreigners are coming to our ashram. So they are also, they said, we have got immediate good effect on our mind and spirit, something. They can experience some good things. So we are definitely practicing all that with cow ghee and everything. Only that time we cannot match with our timetable. So that varies every day, no? That is the thing.
From place to place also. It doesn't.
At least I think our therapy center will try to match. They are also by doing Havan, but not Agnihotra as particular time. I think with this understanding now, we'll continue there at particular time of sunrise and sunset also.
because why I wanted to also is that we have had a lot of people living in right now because of the corona pandemic situation, people who are living in hotspots and containment zones, and they have found that by regular Agnihotra practice and consumption of the Agnihotra ash, many people who were living in areas where many in their immediate vicinity were infected by the virus, but they and their family have not been infected, Guruji. And this they have given to us in form of testimonials. That, I mean, I'm not saying we have found a cure to the virus or whatever. I'm not making that statement. What I'm saying is that somehow these people were not infected by the virus the way they should have been, because this is an extremely contagious virus, and people who come in close proximity with infected people have been known to get immediately infected. But I know of 2 or 3 at least examples of our Agnihotra practitioners living in Western world. I'm not even talking about India right now, because I'm talking about hotspots in the West, especially Europe, where Agnihotra people are living, and people in their building, in the flat above them, on the flat below them are infected, on the house next door is infected, but they are not infected, and this they have given out to us testimonial. So I think this is what I'm trying to understand, is that these sciences have a therapeutic impact on the mind body in a way that we don't understand yet completely. That modern medicine might not be able to understand, modern research has not been able to explain, but there is a definitely impact by following this Vedic lifestyle of doing yoga, following the Ayurvedic diet, routines, doing Agnihotra daily. This combination has a very potent impact on human well-being, Guruji.
No, it is perfectly right. Modern medicine can't find it because they don't have the equipment to find the results. That is their drawback. Actually, results are there, which we can observe. Very simple. But they cannot prove it with their instruments because they don't have the instruments. That is their problem. But definitely, it is useful. We must incorporate. As you said, Yoga, Ayurveda, and again Agnihotra also. The combination will give the much better results.
Could be much better.
I think this will give a stimulation for me also to continue in our Arogya Center.
And because why I'm saying is because I wanted also maybe your guidance in enhancing the yoga practice here in our center, because we get a lot of people from all over the world, and we wanted to learn more, not only through this discussion, but going forward as well, Guruji, because there's a lot of inquiry, there's a lot of interest, and I feel that we need a better guidance from learned gurus like you to help us also impact this knowledge forward, Guruji, because we are not yoga experts. I've always said that. I know the science, I've read a lot about it, but at the end of the day, practice is everything, So Nitya Abhyas is something that is going to be a very big thing going forward. So I would also suggest that maybe there should be some, working together, some cooperation between both the organizations, so that we can create this larger therapeutic protocol, Guruji. Because I've been speaking with many doctors, especially now with the corona pandemic going forward, that there needs to be a different approach to healthcare. You can't be going into a lockdown, or we can't keep waiting for vaccines for everything, Guruji. There has to be some way where human health is enhanced from inner source, from internal changes, rather than constant external inputs, right? So that is something that we wanted you to help us understand, Guruji.
No, let the modern science work as per their strategy, but we can combine all these things, because developing the immune system is also very important. For modern science, they don't have any ways and means for developing the immune system, but we have got them. So it's better to combine all those things. And as you said, we definitely can cooperate for this combination of all these things. We can provide you the personnel also and the guidance also, because we are working for the betterment of the patient also. So we say Rugna Seva is Isha Seva. It is our fundamental statement.
Right. So I think we have had a great discussion, because I wanted your time. I especially I think we should thank the lockdown that we could find time with you.
Yes.
Otherwise, you are a busy person. You would not have been able to give us this time. But thank you so much, because what is important is that there is now, going forward, with the virus becoming almost a daily issue, now there is a lot of talk of living in the post-COVID world. That now Corona is going to be an everyday feature. You might get infected any possible day. You could get infected at school, you could get infected in the office, you could get infected in the train or the bus, and the only fight that we can do is and keep our immunity to the highest, And I asked many doctors, what can we do for keeping immunity high? And I got very generalized answers, oh, eat good food, eat vegetables, eat fruits, like that. But nothing concrete, Guruji. I think yoga could be could play a central role with pranayama and yoga, asana practice to enhance immunity as well, Guruji.
Yes, I say the combination is still better. Every science is good, yoga is good, Ayurveda is good, but we can combine them together. There's no harm because these are all sciences from our history only. So definitely we can combine them and they are matching with each other. The combination will work still better. And we add Agnihotra also, as you have suggested to that. So we can make a common protocol of all that. And that will work still better for betterment of the human race.
Because one thing that we also discussed in this particular issue was something I found out with a very leading medical practitioner, where he said that going in the next 10 years, he said, medicine is going to realize that 80% of diseases that we are fighting today are not located in the body in the first place. They're located in the mind, which is showing its symptom in the body. Treat the mind, you'll treat the body. This is something he said in the next 10 years, we'll try and understand more and more. And this has been the fundamental of all of these Vedic sciences, that you heal the mind and you heal the body. You don't have to heal the body because at the end of the day, it is a simple biochemical structure.
Yes.
This is something that is now being understood more and more in the world today. And I thank experts like you for preserving this knowledge, Guruji. For 40 years, you have done a lot of great tapachara to bring this knowledge to all individuals, Guruji.
That's very nice. A lot of credit goes to you because you ask very systematic questions. I also surprised to answer all those questions, but they are very systematically asked, very systematically designed rather. So I give a lot of thanks to you for asking specific questions so that I can get a chance to answer all of them. So thank you very much.
That's very kind of you, Guruji. So I thank you. I've taken already too much of your time. You had given me 1 hour, but I couldn't resist. I did not stop to you.
It is a pleasure for me also to discuss some of those things.
Without taking your permission, I added another 30 minutes to it, Guruji.
No, it's good for me also and good for others also.
Thank you. That's very kind of you, Guruji. So thank you very much from all of us. Thank you very much for your insight into so many different important topics, helping us understand the concept of yoga and the application yoga can have on our life. That it can be the difference between living a diseased, sad life or the choice between a happy, healthy life. I think that is where Vedic sciences are going to play a very big role. And experts like you, I think, are the best doctors out there right now, Guruji, because they are going to help us shape the next 50, 100 years of human health in a bigger way, Guruji. So thank you so much. Thank you to all your colleagues in the ashram who are spreading this wonderful message to the world. And thank you for creating this foundation, Guruji, of Yoga Vidya Dham, which is doing such a great work in the world today of spreading the true message of yoga for everybody to understand. Thank you so much, Guruji.
And let us continue this cooperation afterwards also.
I let this corona pandemic get over. I'm going to invite you to come to Akkalkot.
Yes, because I had been there long back.
Yes.
When your father was there, I had visited him and met him also.
So we look forward to this pandemic getting over someday, whenever it is, and they permit to travel, and then we can hope to see you here in the ashram. I want to show you what we are doing and get your insights into various different topics as well, Guruji.
Definitely.
So thank you so much, and Namaste, Guruji. Thank you.
Hari Om.